Hey everybody, in today's video we are talking all about heart words. Now I have done a video in the past, it was actually a few years back, where I talked all about how to teach sight words according to the science of reading. The video looks like that right there. And in that video I talk about phoneme-grapheme mapping, and when we have an irregular sound, we put a heart over that irregular sound. So for the purpose of this video, I am going to assume that you already know what a heart word is when we are talking about high frequency words. If you do not, I have a resource down below where you can take a look and understand what heart words are. It's not too difficult, but you need to have that background knowledge to know what's going on in this video. Now that we're all on the same page about heart words, in this video I have 3 tips that are going to help you get started implementing heart words in your classroom. So if you're ready, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. Tip number 1 for teaching heart words to your class is to look through your high frequency words and sort them. Now usually in grades K through 2, either the school or the district or the teachers have combined and come up with a list of high frequency words that your students need to know by the end of the year. Sometimes teachers will use the Dolch list, others will use the Fry list. It doesn't really matter what list you use. In Dolch, those high frequency words are going to be words that are most commonly seen in books, and so that is why they teach them that way. They are high frequency. But unlike what we did in the past where we told our students that those sight words just has to be memorized, rote memorization, whole word memorization with flashcards and things, we found out that most of those words are actually pretty decodable. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at your list, the list that you use, and you want to sort those words into categories by phonics skill. For example, the words at, can, had, all 3 of those words are on the high frequency word list, and they're all decodable. They all have that short A sound. So as you're teaching, instead of separating all of those words you need to teach and teaching them by, skill and drill, you can teach them in the same way that you teach your other phonics patterns. And again, if you're wondering how to do that, this video right here will show you exactly how to teach sight words. Now, as you look through your list, you're going to come across 2 different types of words. I believe these terms were coined by Reading Rockets, at least that's where I first read of them, and I will link this article down in the description below. But basically you are going to have your flash words and you're going to have your heart words. Now, the flash words are like the ones I just said, at, had, can. Those are essentially high frequency words that are decodable and can just go into your phonics pattern, your phonics sequence that you're teaching. And you can teach them in the same way. You will have other words that are irregularly spelled, such as the word said. When you're teaching your young students a word like said, that AI in the middle doesn't follow a regular phonics pattern that they will have learned, right? It is a heart word. That is what we call irregularly spelled words. And what we do with the heart word is we explicitly teach it, right? We teach it to our students. We first introduce them to the word said, have them repeat it. They want to go ahead and segment those phonemes, so they have s, e, d. They hear the 3 different sounds. They can use some Elkonin boxes to help them with this. S, e, d. And then you're going to tell them, s, what grapheme makes that? What letter makes the sound s? They will know it is an S, and they'll put the S in this box. Then you let students know that this middle sound, what do we normally think of when we hear the sound? They'll probably tell you E, and you're going to tell them this is one of our heart words. Actually, in the word said, that sound is represented by AI, and you will go ahead and write that in the middle. And you'll tell your students that this is a heart word, and you'll actually put a little heart over that sound. Then you go to the last sound, D, and they will tell you it is a D. Write a D in the box. So this way when students are recognizing and remembering this word, the only part they have to memorize, and you'll tell them this, they only have to remember that AI in the word said is going to represent that sound. This way they don't have to remember S-A-I-D, S-A-I-D. They know S and they know D. They just have to remember the So when you are looking through your high frequency words, you are going to look at them and say, okay, is this decodable? That can go in the, flash words pile, and you can put that over in your regular phonics scope and sequence. A word like said, which is a heart word, you will decide where you want to teach that. Now, if it were me, said, since it makes that eh sound, and it's a very common word that students will see. I would teach that early on, probably in this short E section when I'm teaching about short E CVC words, and I would explain that this is an exception. This is a heart word. It's an exception to that rule, right? Here, the eh is made by AI. So tip 1 is to go through those words that you need to teach throughout the year and decide, are they flash words? Are they decodable? And put them into your regular phonics pattern to make sure you teach them during that time. And if not, if they're heart words and they are irregularly spelled, you will want to decide when you're going to teach them. To make this a little bit easier for you, if you are in the SJT Literacy Club, I actually have a scope and sequence of all of the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade Dolch high frequency words, and I say where they should go in my opinion in terms of phonics skill, and if it is a heart word, I share when I would usually teach it. So that should be pretty easy for you. It is under the phonics section of the club. It will say heart word scope and sequence. Go ahead and download it. If you are not in the club, go on to Google and type in heart word scope and sequence. There are at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 ones that I have seen before that are free for you. So you can kind of search through and see what ones you like to help. Tip number 2 in teaching heart words is to pre-teach about 10 to 15 words to your students. Now, when we are talking about our primary learners, there are going to be a few sight words that you really want your students to know before we even dive into some texts. So the Reading Rockets article that I mentioned earlier, and that will be listed down below, they picked out 10 words that they suggest you pre-teach to your students after they have learned letter names, but before you even start phonics. So if you are going to be starting teaching short A, CVC words, before you do that, in order to read some of the decodable text that your students will begin to read using those words, you will want to pre-teach about 10 words. Now here is the exact table 1 from that article I keep mentioning from Reading Rockets. These are the suggested 10 sight words for pre-readers to learn, and they suggest teaching them in this order. We have the, a, I, to, and, was, for, you, is, and of, and it even shows you where they fall on the Dolch rank as well as the Fry rank. These words are just used so often in our readers that our students will be exposed to that it's going to give them kind of a leg up, if you could say, when they actually start decoding text. And again, like I said, you don't want to teach these until after students already know all of their letter names, but you do this before they go into their phonics pattern. So typically we would start with CVC, short A words. So you would do it before that. And to teach these words, you would want to do it one by one. So each word should really have its own explicit instruction. You can have students memorize it. You can show them how many letters are in the word. You can have them point out the word as many times as they see it in a line of other words. You really just want students to be able to recognize these 10 words before you dive into phonics lessons. All right, so tip 1 is to go through those high frequency words and sort them by flash words and heart words and decide when you're going to teach them. Tip 2 is to make sure you pre-teach those 10 to 15 words that your students need to know before you dive into phonics instruction. And tip 3 is going to be remove hearts over time. Now, this one is important because as your students are going to learn more phonics patterns and more phonics rules, they are going to learn that some of these words aren't as irregular as we think. For example, if you are teaching kindergarten and you are teaching students the word she, it is going to have sh, the sh sound that they will learn when you're teaching digraphs, and then that e on the end is actually going to say the long vowel sound E, so that would have a heart over it in kindergarten. But when you get to first grade and second grade, your students will hopefully learn about open syllables, and they will see that she is an open syllable, and at the end of an open syllable, usually that makes the long vowel sound. Now they know that rule and we can remove that heart. That no longer needs to be a heart word for your students after they learn the rule. Another example would be a lot of those words that end in S, like is, has, as, was. All of those words, we would put a heart over the S because it makes the Z sound, z, when we were teaching this to our students in kindergarten and probably a little bit in first grade too. But once we teach students that the S sound can actually make S or Z, and that Z sound is actually very common, we can take away that heart. Instead, we can teach students that as they read the word, if they haven't, already memorized this word, which they probably will when they learn this pattern, but we can teach them to try out both sounds to see which one makes the word. And again, once they learn that, we take away the heart. The goal is to have as few heart words as possible because we want to really reserve those heart words for true irregularly spelled words, like that word said. That word said is going to remain a heart word in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So as your students progress through their phonics instruction, if they learn a new phonetic pattern that matches one of their old heart words, you can go over and remove that heart and say, we know this now. If you were to have to wait to teach all of the phonics rules that go with those high frequency words for them to kind of match up, you wouldn't be teaching some of those words till like later in 2nd grade. But that's not going to be beneficial for our students, so instead we use that little heart, like I'm saying over the word she, right? She is a common word we want our kindergarten students to be able to read when they are decoding texts, and that's an easy one we can teach them if we just put the heart over it. But once we learn that open syllable rule, we can take it away, and now we just know why it says she. I often think about that with our controlled vowel words, like the word for. In kindergarten, I want my students to be able to read that word for. That is one of the ones that is often pre-taught, but if you were to teach it as a heart word, you could easily just say f and then or being that sound, right? And you can do the heart over it and show students how that sounds. But then in 1st grade, when they learn about those R controlled vowels, you would take that heart away. All right, so there are 3 top tips for teaching heart words to your K-2 students. Just a reminder, number 1 is to go through and sort your high frequency words. Number 2 is to pre-teach essential words. And number 3 is to remove those hearts over time. I would love to know from you, do you already use heart words in your class? If you do, let me know down in the description. Or if you're just getting started, was this video helpful to you? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.